I heard the crash before I saw the family photo shatter on the tile floor. The sound of glass breaking echoed through the otherwise silent hallway, and I froze mid-step, the ceramic fragments skittering like startled insects under my feet. The wind from the open front door fluttered the gauzy curtains and brought with it a bitter bite of November rain. I didn't know yet how far this night would carry me. My name is Marisol Dean, and I inherited the house. This old craftsman dwelling in the rain-bright city of Greyhaven. I was upstairs folding laundry in the guest room when the doorbell rang. It was far too early, close to sunset, but not yet. I glanced down at the hall clock. It read 4:12 p.m., which meant they'd arrived well ahead of schedule. I wiped suds off my hands and went down to answer. Standing on the threshold were my daughter, Alexis, and her husband, Julian. Their coats glistened wetly from the rain. Alexis's hair was plastered to her cheeks, Julian's shoes squared too neatly for a casual drop-in. The bottle of wine he held seemed more like a prop than a gift. I welcomed them inside, folding their damp coats and guiding them gently into the living room. Surprise! We came early to help, Alexis announced, a bright grin plastered across her face, but I noticed it didn't quite reach her eyes. Julian followed behind, shaking my hand with exaggerated firmness, like he was trying to assert something. You really didn't have to, I said, forcing a smile as I closed the door behind them. Alexis leaned in, whispering, we kept the coats on just in case it's a little chilly. A peculiar phrasing, given the thermostat was set at a comfortable 72. I shrugged the remark aside. Perhaps I was imagining it. But when they moved into the space as though it were already theirs, I had a subtle, growing unease, almost like the house exhaled around me, warning. Julian cleared his throat. Mind if I use the restroom upstairs? That commute from Harbor Street was brutal, he said. Sure, I answered, though my throat felt dry. You know where it is. As he ascended the stairs, I noticed Alexis hover near the kitchen island. She picked up spoons, rearranged a bowl, touched the marble counter lightly. She asked, so Mom, how long do you roast a turkey this size? I replied, 3.5 hours. She tilted her head, her voice strained. And you're still doing the stuffing inside? Isn't that risky? At that moment the floorboards above us groaned, not in the bathroom area, but along the hallway landing. A closet door edged open, then closed. I froze, hand still on the carving knife I'd placed on the counter, the metal so cold it surprised me. Alexis's animated voice kept going, offering her cranberry sauce recipe. It's easier than yours, she said, rapidly, breathless. But I heard the creaks, the stomping above, the faint whisper of two voices. Intent? I wondered. I held my silence and instead excused myself. I'll go get the tablecloth from upstairs, I said, keeping my tone even. Each stair complained under my weight. The chandelier above flickered in the dimming daylight. I paused halfway, hearing Julian's voice drifted low from the floor above me, 3 bedrooms and a basement, huge. Perfect. Then another voice, older, raucous. That nursing home's cheap. $2,800 a month. Once the rent's gone, we'll be fine. My chest twisted around the words. Rent? They were talking about me as though I wasn't there. In the landing's hush I stood, silent, as the bathroom door closed upstairs and the footsteps turned to the far end of the hallway. The house I'd built with my husband, every memory, every evening light, every laugh, was being parceled out in whispers. Their plan foiled in the dark. I placed one hand on the banister and let the dampness of the wood calm me. I descended the stairs quietly, back into the kitchen where Alexis was lifting a wine glass to the light, turning it slowly. Found what you needed, she asked innocently. I forced a smile and replied, changed my mind. The table's fine as it is. I watched Alexis's eyes shimmer and she said softly, Are you feeling all right, Mom? You look pale. Just the heat, I lied. Dinner became a quiet performance. Alexis called me Mom with a warmth so rehearsed it made my skin prickle. Julian complimented the crown molding, the new windows, the way the rain-streaked light settled on the dining table. At one point he asked casually, Ever think about simplifying? A smaller place, less to maintain. I kept my face unreadable. Alexis added softly, "We just worry about you being alone in this big house." I nodded, though inside my mind the house shuddered. Later, when they left, I listened to the drop of the door closing behind them, the car's engine pulsing in the night through the rain-beaten window. The house felt invaded, like a ship where new boarders had quietly come aboard. I walked through each room they had already claimed in their minds: the living room, the master's suite, the basement. I could almost see their plans hovering like ghosts. The turkey carcass still sat, half-carved and abandoned. Outside the rain came harder, each window streaked with silver tears. Sleep eluded me. I sat at the kitchen table, coffee cold in front of me, and watched the clock glow in the dark. My thoughts seethed with every syllable of Julian's laughter, every phrase about possible downsizing, simpler life, maintenance. I remembered raising Alexis alone after her father died. Every bill paid, every sacrifice made, every quiet night spent thinking of tomorrow. I had signed the final mortgage check with a proud hand. They thought I was outdated. They thought I was fading. But they were wrong. By morning the grief had turned into something sharper. I was not done. I would not be erased. The calls from Alexis began with the polished sweetness of control. "Hey Mom, just checking in," she'd say. "You sounded tired on Thanksgiving." She'd mention the stairs. "Have you thought about a retirement home?" "They're not like they used to be." She played the part of caring daughter. I responded with vague replies. "I'll think about it." "Maybe." I gave nothing. Instead, I began my quiet preparation. I drove to the old public library in Grey Haven, sat in the back corner under buzzing fluorescent lights. I opened the public computers and typed state property law into the search bar. My fingers moved slowly but deliberately. Over the next days I filled a notebook with ownership rights, eviction processes, sales regulations. I learned that as sole owner I could sell the house any time. No signatures, no permissions required. The thought made me smile, for the first time in months. They thought I was naive, but I was simply patient. At a meeting with an attorney, Mr. Dominic Rhodes, I sat in a lemon-filtered office, the scent faint but firm. "So," he said, adjusting his glasses, "you're asking if you can sell your house without your daughter's consent?" "Yes," I said. "She is not on the title." He smiled. "Then you have every right, Miss Dean. They can't stop you. They can't even slow you down." My chest felt settled. Control solid. Legal. I left that office feeling the old version of myself, the architect wife, the proud homeowner, returning. I spread graph paper across my dining table that night. The lines and boxes felt comforting. At the top I wrote, "Project Freedom." Beneath it, Phase 1, Play Week. Let them believe they're winning. Phase 2, Prepare quietly, find a buyer. Phase 3, Close sale fast. Phase 4, Serve notice. Phase 5, Disappear. Arrows, timelines, double-checked everything. The blueprint of revenge, or perhaps of reclaiming my life, stood clear. December came with steady rain and the vague glow of holiday lights through low fog. I let the house reflect my decline. I stopped opening mail, let bills pile on the counter. The tree remained boxed in the corner. Only one crooked strand of lights draped across the mantel. The image was perfect, the old woman slipping away, fading into orderly chaos. When Alexis and Julian visited on Christmas Day, I made sure to move slower, pausing halfway up the stairs. "Mom, let me get that," Alexis said, rushing over. "These stairs are getting dangerous for you." I sighed, rubbed my lower back. "Getting old, I guess," I said. The smile on both their faces was too bright, celebratory. That night Julian suggested, "Maybe it's time to consider your options, a smaller place, less to maintain." Alexis reached for my hand. "We just want you safe, Mom." I let the silence hang before I slowly nodded. "You might be right. Maybe it's time." Their faces lit up. January brought gray skies and sharper focus. I met a real estate agent, Ms. Mary Chin, in a quiet cafe. She was efficient, polite, asked no personal questions. "You mentioned you need privacy," she said. "Yes," I replied. "My family can't know about this yet." She nodded. "Understood. I know a buyer who can move fast." I signed preliminary paperwork there and then. Over the next 3 weeks, I made quiet trips to a rental storage unit outside the city. I carried out photographs, my late husband's keepsakes, furniture I sold online under a different name. Each box lifted felt like a burden shedding from my shoulders. I stood in my emptying living room one evening and whispered, "Let them dream. Let them pack. By the time they unpack, it'll be gone." By late January, I returned to Mr. Rhodes's office with the sale documents. He reviewed every line. His pen tapped the desk. "Everything's clean. As sole owner, you control it all. Once the sale closes, anyone living there must leave within 30 days. I nodded. "And if they refuse?" "Then you file for eviction." I smiled faintly. "Excellent," I said. I left the office feeling unexpectedly light. That evening, I made myself a simple dinner: rice, grilled chicken, ate at the same table where I'd drawn my revenge blueprint. Rain tapped the windows steadily. The world outside seemed to grieve, or perhaps to witness, whichever. My phone buzzed. Alexis's name glowed. "Hey, Mom," she cooed. "Just checking in." "I'm tired, but I'm fine," I said. "We'll stop by tomorrow," she said. "I have something to show you." I hung up. "Good. Keep believing it," I whispered. The next morning, Alexis arrived with a glossy brochure whose front read, "Sunrise Meadows Senior Living," in cheerful gold letters. "A friend told me about this place," she said, sliding it across the table. "It's clean, affordable, and close to us." I flipped through photos of bright rooms, seniors smiling under artificial skylights. I noticed the number, affordable, $2,800 a month. It matched the whisper I'd overheard that Thanksgiving evening. I said calmly, "Looks nice. Would you like to visit, just to see it?" "No commitment," she said sweetly. I nodded. They drove us to the facility. Alexis chatted about amenities, independence. Julian drove quietly. I sat in the back, watching the world pass by snowy wet glass. The place was pleasant, but too pleasant sterile. A staff member led the tour, cheerfully describing 3 meals a day, activities, medical staff. In the common room, an old woman leaned toward me and whispered, "Don't come here unless you must. You lose yourself." I smiled faintly and nodded. When the tour ended, we drove home in silence. Finally, Alexis asked, "So, what do you think?" "It's adequate," I replied. "I'll think about it." That was enough. Her relief was obvious. "You'll love it, Mom. Less stress, more company." Julian added, "And we'll take care of the house for you." "No problem." I watched their faces. In the rearview mirror, they glowed with triumph. The day I was dropped off, I watched them drive away, Mark's license plate trailing rain. I closed the door, exhaled. "Good," I whispered. "Keep believing it." I waited 3 days before my next move. Silence is an underestimated weapon. When wielded with patience, it slices deeper than words ever could. Alexis expected eagerness, updates, indecision. Instead, I gave her nothing. No calls, no questions, not even polite curiosity about Sunrise Meadows. The more I held back, the more they reached out. It started with casual check-ins. Then came more frequent visits, always with suggestions, hints, carefully disguised pushes. "It's just a transition, Mom," Alexis said one day. "You don't have to stay forever." But I saw it in her eyes. Forever was the plan. On a cold Friday afternoon, she brought over homemade scones and a laminated checklist titled, "Preparing for Retirement Living." I read it, smiling faintly, even as the words made my blood turn cold. Forward mail, donate unwanted furniture, make copies of important papers. Each bullet point a quiet theft of my life. "They're helpful tips," she offered. I sipped my tea and said nothing. Let her dream. Julian came by the next day. Alone. "Thought I'd help you box up the basement," he said, cheerfully invading my threshold. "All that old stuff can go to Goodwill." I followed him down the creaking steps and watched him assess every shelf, every box, with greedy calculation. He picked up my husband's woodworking tools that had built the shelves we stood beside, and turned them over like items at a garage sale. "These will fetch a good price," he muttered, mostly to himself. I smiled. "You're right," I said softly. "Everything must go." That night, I emptied the boxes he'd overlooked: photos, plans, letters, and moved them to my storage unit. When I returned, I resealed the old boxes with useless knickknacks. The illusion had to hold. Days later, my neighbor, Sylvia, dropped off a casserole and leaned in with a wary look. "I saw that man again," she said. "Your son-in-law. He was here yesterday afternoon with 2 older people. They had keys." My stomach turned, but I kept my tone light. "Did they go inside?" "Yes," she nodded. "They walked through like it was theirs." I thanked her calmly and closed the door. Then I went to the kitchen drawer. The spare key was still there, but I remembered, months ago, Julian had borrowed it during a plumbing emergency. Plenty of time to make a copy. My jaw clenched. They were measuring my home, planning their move while I was still in it. That evening, I walked through my house slowly, touching every surface. The notch in the hallway from Alexis's first bike. The fireplace hearth my husband built stone by stone. The sun-stained window glass in the den. They weren't taking it from me. Not this house. Not this history. I checked my emails. One unread. From Alexis. "So proud of you for being open-minded, Mom. This is a good thing. Love you." I deleted it. The next morning, I called her. I let my voice tremble a little, just enough. "I've been thinking," I said. "Maybe it's time I move into that place." Silence. Then, "Really?" she asked, voice catching with excitement. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." "Oh, Mom, you'll love it there," she gushed. "We'll help with everything." "Let's meet for lunch," I said. "Tomorrow. Bring Julian. I want to hear his thoughts." She didn't question it. Of course she didn't. She thought the war was won. We met at a bright diner downtown. Laminated menus. Booths that smelled faintly of bleach and syrup. They arrived early, folder already on the table. I slid into the booth across from them. Alexis looked radiant, relieved, almost euphoric. Julian was calm, confident. A vulture in business casual. "Just some paperwork," Julian said smoothly, sliding the folder toward me. "Temporary residence agreement. We'll take care of the house while you're away. Keep it safe. Handle repairs." I flipped through it. The wording was vague, strategically so. Enough legal dressing to look official. Enough ambiguity to trap the uninformed. "Looks good," I said. "Just temporary?" Of course, Alexis beamed. I signed. My hand shook slightly for effect. Julian placed his hand on mine. "We're so proud of you, Marisol." That night, somewhere across town, his parents celebrated. A second-hand word reached me through Sylvia the next day. "They're moving in April," she said. "They've already picked out furniture." I smiled politely and went inside. The house had already been sold. Mary Chan had finalized the cash sale a week prior. All legal. All quiet. Closing date, April 15th. Eviction notices prepared. Timeline circled. I had signed away my home before they ever thought to claim it. The next few weeks passed in near silence. Alexis called less, believing the deed was done. Julian visited twice, mostly to measure windows and mutter about renovations. His parents even stopped by. I watched from the shadows of my study window as they unloaded paint swatches, new curtains, cleaning supplies. My house, my life, rewritten in beige and greed. I left them to it. Instead of heading to Sunrise Meadows on April 1st, I packed the final box into my sedan and drove south past the skyline, beyond the city's edge, to a small apartment I'd rented under my mother's maiden name. It was plain, but warm. No history. No ghosts. Just freedom. I sat at the kitchen table, unfolded the sale documents, and breathed. Across town, Julian's parents began settling in. He hosted a small gathering, laughing over drinks. Yeah, the old lady's comfortable. Got her tucked in tight at Sunrise. House is ours for now. They had no idea. 2 weeks left. The hammer hadn't fallen yet. But it would. April 15th arrived not with thunder, but with clarity. The sky over Greyhaven was a cloudless blue, the kind of deceptive beauty that masks the shifting ground beneath your feet. At 10 a.m., I sat in the sterile calm of a downtown title office, facing a young couple, Sarah and Michael Wilton, who had just signed their names on the final line of a dream. They beamed. "We've always wanted a craftsman like this," Sarah said, clutching Michael's hand. I smiled. "You'll take good care of it," I murmured. The escrow officer, a tight-lipped man in a cobalt suit, handed me a folder. "All done. Funds wired." My attorney, Dominic Rhodes, passed me an envelope. "Eviction notice. Certified mail goes out today." I closed the folder slowly, savoring the moment like the final sip of hot tea. Excellent. 2 days later, the letter arrived at the house in Ballard. Julian signed for it without glancing, too busy reviewing a list of light fixtures he wanted to replace. He tossed it on the counter. That afternoon, while pouring coffee in the kitchen, he opened it. The scream was almost comical. Alexis. I imagined her sprinting in from the living room, barefoot on the wood floors, panic rising before she even saw the paper. "What is it?" He handed it to her. I imagined her reading it slowly, the words taking longer than expected to pierce her illusion. Notice to vacate premises. Property legally sold on April 15th. Buyers, Sarah and Michael Wilton. Seller, Marisol Dean. Deadline, 30 days. They didn't speak at first. They couldn't. Shock steals language before it allows panic to enter. Then Alexis whispered, "This has to be a mistake." Julian was already dialing. My number. No answer. They tried again. Again. No voicemail. Just absence. By the next morning, they were desperate. Julian drove to Sunrise Meadows, demanding to see me. The receptionist, a kind, elderly woman named Pat, typed my name into the computer twice. "I'm sorry, sir. We have no resident by that name." "Check again," he barked. She did. She even called her supervisor. "Sir, I'm afraid there's no record of a Marisol Dean ever residing here." Julian left in a daze. That evening, their lawyer delivered the blow. "This residence agreement," he said, holding the paper between 2 fingers, "has no legal value. It was never notarized, never filed, and the owner, Ms. Dean, had every right to sell. You have no claim to the property." "But we moved in," Alexis said. "We've been taking care of her." "Intent does not equal ownership," the lawyer replied. "You have 30 days. After that, if you haven't vacated, the new owners will proceed with eviction." Julian turned red. "She tricked us." "No," the lawyer said with a tight smile. "You tricked yourselves." By the time they returned home, the drizzle had started again, steady, gray, unforgiving. A fitting curtain for the unraveling. They tried to fight it. Alexis called realtors. Julian emailed lawyers. Porter and Lydia, the smug in-laws, started calculating how quickly they could access emergency funds. But it was no use. Every door they pushed was locked. Every thread they tugged came undone in their hands. I watched it all unfold from afar. From the comfort of my small apartment overlooking Rainier Street, I sipped tea and read the updates that filtered through Sylvia and other curious neighbors. I didn't need to ask. People talk when chaos brews next door. Apparently, Julian's parents had already terminated their apartment lease back in March. They'd sold furniture, downsized, bragged to their friends. Now they were stuck in a house that legally belonged to strangers. They had nowhere to go. By week 2, Lydia had taken a part-time job at a grocery store. Porter was calling in old favors for work, none of which panned out. Their savings had been funneled into small renovations, ripping up carpet, buying new light fixtures. Money gone. Time gone. Pride? Obliterated. Julian and Alexis stopped speaking for stretches of days. The screaming matches that followed made Sylvia's walls tremble. "You promised." Alexis shrieked one night, loud enough for half the street to hear. "You told me this was secure." Julian shouted back, "She's your mother. You should have known." They were eating themselves alive. Meanwhile, the Wiltons were preparing to move in. Mary Chan called me with updates every few days. "They're lovely," she said. "Very respectful. Can't wait to meet you in person when the house is empty." I didn't correct her. I had no interest in nostalgia. That house was no longer mine. It had simply become the instrument. 1 week before the final deadline, Alexis emailed me. "Mom, I know you're angry. I need you to know I didn't mean for it to go this far. It was Julian's idea. I just went along with it. Please, can we talk? I never wanted to hurt you. Love, Alexis." I waited 2 days before replying. Downtown Cafe. Saturday, 2 p.m. When I arrived, she was already there, nervous, pale, her hair pulled back tight like she was holding herself together with every clip and pin. "Mom," she began. I raised a hand gently. "I let you speak," I said. "Now you listen." She nodded, biting her lip. "We were desperate. We made a mistake. Please. I'm still your daughter." I looked at her, the same face I once soothed during thunderstorms, the same voice that called me mommy before it ever called me a burden. "You didn't just try to take my house," I said calmly. "You tried to erase me." Tears filled her eyes. "It was never meant to be like this." I finished my coffee, placed a $5 bill on the table, and stood. "You made your choice, Alexis. Now you live with it." Then I left. I never looked back. They left the house in silence. No final tantrum. No goodbye. Just a rental van idling at the curb as rain traced grim lines down the windows of what they had once believed was theirs. Julian and Alexis moved like ghosts, hauling boxes they could barely lift, dragging a mattress that scraped the doorway. Their faces were pale, slack, drained of arrogance. The house, my house, stood quiet and empty once more, its rooms echoing with the aftermath of a battle they never saw coming. I didn't go back. I didn't need to. I'd already said goodbye to those walls, to those floors, to the dreams I once tucked under that roof like folded linens. I let the Wiltons walk into their new life with keys in hand, their laughter echoing down the hallway. Sarah called it a dream come true on closing day. I let her have that dream. It was real for them. They'd earned it. Julian's parents never spoke to me again. I heard through Sylvia that Porter and Lydia found a small unit in South Drenner, 2 bedrooms, no balcony, 4th floor walk-up. Rent had tripled since their last lease. Lydia's job at the grocery store became full-time. Porter? Last I heard, he was still looking. He made noise about suing, about reclaiming their investment. But noise doesn't build walls. It doesn't win wars. It only echoes. Julian and Alexis retreated from public life. Once so social, so visible, they stopped attending neighborhood mixers, deactivated their social media accounts. They pulled their daughter from private school and put their plans for a second child on hold. Their credit was shot. Their savings gone. No one said it out loud, but everyone knew. They had tried to steal from family. And they had failed. I settled into my new life like slipping into warm water. The apartment I'd chosen was modest, but filled with light. Morning sun draped across the living room like silk. Birds nested near the window. I started growing herbs on the balcony, basil, rosemary, lavender. It made the place smell alive. For the first time in years, I slept through the night. I joined a community walking group. I visited the botanical gardens twice a week. I took up sketching again, something I hadn't done since Alexis was little. My hands still remembered the lines of my favorite trees, the slant of roofs, the way clouds curl at the edges like thoughts refusing to finish. One day, while sketching by the lake, a man in a green jacket approached. His name was Victor. He was a retired structural engineer, soft-spoken, kind. We talked for 2 hours about bridges. I didn't tell him about the house. I didn't tell him about Alexis. Some stories are best shared slowly, like tea steeped in silence. On the last Sunday of May, I received a letter. Handwritten, unmarked envelope. Alexis's handwriting. Inside, a single page. Mom, I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. I don't expect you to. But I wanted you to know. I've thought about everything you said. Every word. I wish I could go back. I can't. I'm sorry. For the house. For trying to take something that wasn't mine. For trying to write your story without your permission. I hope wherever you are, you're happy. I hope I didn't ruin that. Love. Alexis. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. Not out of cruelty. Not out of spite. But because I needed space to remember what healing felt like without having to tend her wounds first. Let her carry that weight. I'd carried enough for both of us. There are moments, even now, when I wake before the sun and expect to see my old bedroom ceiling, the one with the tiny water stain from that terrible storm in '98. My fingers twitch for the light switch that used to be on the left wall, near the framed wedding photo. But instead, my eyes open to something simpler. Clean. Free of shadows. It's strange what remains in muscle memory. What lingers after everything else has gone. I don't miss the house. What I miss, what I grieve, is the version of myself that used to live in it. The woman who believed she had to make herself smaller to make others comfortable. The woman who ignored the dismissive tone, the controlling suggestions, the quiet rewriting of her story until she no longer recognized the chapters. But she's gone now. The woman who remains? She knows better. Some days I still walk by the old house in Ballard. I stay across the street. The Wiltons have done a beautiful job. They added a small bench under the cedar tree, repainted the shutters. There's a child now, maybe 4, maybe 5, who rides a tiny scooter up and down the front path. She laughs like Alexis used to when she was little, before all the disappointments, before the entitlement. I let the sound pass through me like wind. I never stop long. Just enough to remind myself, some endings are doorways. And some escapes are victories. Alexis never wrote again. I don't expect she will. Julian, I assume, is still bitter. Maybe they'll recover. Maybe they'll split. That's not my story anymore. For the first time in my life, I don't carry everyone else's endings on my back. I take art classes now. Twice a week, down in the warehouse district, where the studio smells like oil paint and old floorboards. My instructor, Rosie, says I have the hand of a woman who's seen silence and survived it. I think she meant it as a compliment. I took it as one. One night, after class, I sketched the outline of my old house from memory. But instead of drawing the walls or the roof or the porch light, I drew the roots beneath it. Tangled. Deep. Some healthy. Some rotten. I didn't label them. Didn't need to. I knew which roots were mine, and which had tried to strangle me. I burned the sketch. It felt good. Victor, yes, the man in the green jacket, has become something of a regular presence in my life. We have Sunday breakfasts now. He listens more than he speaks. When I told him the story, abridged, of course, he simply said, "You're not a victim. You're an architect. You built your freedom." I smiled. Not bad for someone who was almost erased. He lifted his coffee cup. Almost. Sometimes, I still hear echoes of the past. The sound of Alexis laughing as a child. Julian tapping his pen against the table. My husband's voice humming to the old jazz records on Sundays. But they're just echoes. Not chains. That matters. Because here's the thing no one tells you about starting over in your 60s. It doesn't feel like reinvention. It feels like remembering who you were before the world told you who to become. I was never fragile. I was waiting. Now, I've arrived.